Hey, welcome along to our next book review. Um, looking today particularly at a challenge the church faces. For a decade or so, we realised, oops, we need gluten-free options because we have people who are gluten-free. And it's just how they are, and so we need to cater for them. But there are a lot of people, I think, with different needs that we aren't catering well for. I'm currently doing the Growing Young material with one church, and one of the people who's part of that tells the story of this young person that she knows who was going to church, loving church, but because of overstimulus, the music was just too loud. And they said to some of the leaders in the church, hey, the music's just too loud. And the leaders basically said, your problem, not ours. And so that person now watches church online at home. Because there was no way that the church could think of to help this young person. So how are we connecting with people with varying needs? Because we're discovering more and more of these. And some adults are discovering, hey, we've got these as well. So I want to look at two books. The first one is Special Needs Ministry for Children. It's a bunch of different authors put together by Pat Verbal. And came out in, I'm going to say 2012 from Group Publishing. Group Publishing does a bunch of great stuff. But yeah, you can grab it from, I think I got it from Koorong. Great book that helps us to think about, firstly, why would we want to do ministry with special needs people? And thinks about some of the biblical emphasis for, needing to connect with those who are specially abled, those that are needy. And then starts us to think about, well, what do they need? What does a special needs person need? And then goes into the practicalities of, well, how are we going to start this up? What sort of planning do we need to do? What sort of group might we have? How do we, start to gather together leaders and train them? How do we start to promote it? So really practical book. Theory and then practice. This is how we put it into place. There's talk about the different styles of different categories of disability or special needs. So physical, autism, hearing and visual disability, learning disabilities, and developmental disabilities. It encourages us to think about, that sense of if we're actually trying to cater for those with special needs, then everyone will benefit. So this is not just about, we need to look after this little group, but if we're doing ministry well for these people, we'll be doing ministry well for everyone. So really great book, worth grabbing. And encourages us to think about how do we support young people with special needs? How do we support their families? One of the key things it says in it, one of the quotes I liked was, just talk to them, listen to their experience and pray with them. Not pray that their child will be healed, but just be there and praying for them as a family. Hey, as you go through these struggles. It's a challenge for us to be thinking, but really encourage you to borrow this book or grab this book to think about how can we do this better, because there's not a lot happening in the Hunter, so we can. And some of our churches are starting to do this, so how do we do this really, really well? The other book is Autism and Your Church. My original copy of this is somewhere in Brisbane. I lent it to some people because they had an autistic child coming into their boys brigade, and so I had to get a new one. So you can still track this down. It's a bit of an older book, but again, really, really practical. So again, starts with what is autism or autism spectrum disorder. What is it? What's the label? Then gives 10 strategies for including individuals with autism. So finding out information about them, helping them to monitor their sensory input in your church environment. So these things that we just never bothered to think about. Asking, actually, is this too loud? That question that church wasn't willing to ask. Thinking alongside the person with ASD, closing the communication gap, the whole heap of 10 strategies to do it. And then there's helping you to work on behaviour management and an action plan. And the beauty is, lots of information, but at the back, a whole heap of sample forms, sample of observation form, sample interview question for adult ministry, sample interview question for children's ministry, sample individual spiritual formation plan. Hey, how can we help this young person to grow? Sample job description for a coordinator of ministry with children and adults. So there's lots of different resources. There's how do we help with visuals for people with autism, those needs. So again, wonderful practical book. You might have to work harder to track it down, so feel free to borrow my copy, but encourage us to think about how are we helping those with this. And for a number of years we've had some people in our different ministries who've had special needs, and I now have a son who is ASD and ADHD, and so those challenges, I know it's real. So how do we get better as a church of connecting with these people? I continue to explore this and read these books and think, gee, I wish I'd done back then quite differently. In the, I'm going to say older days, but it's really not that long ago that, there were some people with neurodivergence that could have done better with. But that's always the case. We could always do better, but we can do better by learning and reading. So let me encourage you. 2 books. Borrow them, buy them. Special Needs Ministry with Children, for Children, Autism and Our Church. And let's think about how we can better minister to those who are neurodivergent or neurospicy or who have other needs than what we have.